Hey, welcome to Unleashed, the show that explores how to thrive as an independent professional. I'm your host, Will Bachman, and today I'm excited to have a good friend of mine on the show, Umbrex member Kaihan Krippendorf, who has quickly pulled together an amazing summit to raise funds for people that are affected by the coronavirus pandemic. And without any further intro, Kaihan, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit what you've got going on.
Awesome. Thank you, Will, for having me here. Yeah, we have been able to really, it was a surprise to us how quickly this came together, but we've organized a summit of some of the world's leading thought leaders in strategy and innovation, transformation. They're donating 1 hour of their time to each deliver a 1 hour Zoom presentation. So picture 2 days packed with 10 1 hour Zoom presentations. And all of the proceeds go to support nonprofits that are helping people deal with COVID-19. But I mean, what was really remarkable was the outpouring of support from these thought leaders we have. For example, Paul Krugman, Nobel Prize winning economist and New York Times writer, Roger Martin, who was rated the #1 thought leader in the world by Thinkers 50, good friend of mine and others I think that listen to this podcast is Rita McGrath. She was ranked the #1 thought leader in strategy, and she's a Columbia professor. Anyway, I could go on, but these kinds of people that otherwise are in really high demand, they are agreeing to volunteer their time to be part of the summit.
Great. So while we talk about it, let's first just get the name of the summit out there and where people can go and find about it online and the dates of it. So as we discuss it, if people want to be checking the website, where can people go?
Great. So it's called the Outthinker 2020 Virtual Summit, Outthinker with 2 T's. The website name is a little bit of a mouthful, summit.outthinkerroundtables.com. But I think if you just Google Outthinker 2020 Summit, it should pop up.
Okay, great. And we'll include that link in the show notes. So, and when is it again?
April 6th and 7th.
Okay, fantastic.
Monday and a Tuesday. Yeah.
So
we thought we should move quickly. While COVID is really an issue, we want to raise money quickly while people need it. And knock on wood, hopefully we're all praying that this will not be a prolonged crisis, although it might be, but we know people need help now, so we worked hard to move very quickly on this.
Yeah, this is incredible.
It's coming up soon.
And I took a look at your website, and it looks like something that's been in planning for months. So I was blown away when I saw it yesterday. That how quickly you pulled this thing together. I want to talk about a few different things on the show, Kaihan. I'd like to number one, go through the story of how you pulled this specific one together and just how you went about reaching out to folks and doing that. Number two, I'd love to go through for someone who's listening to the show and wants to do something similar. Maybe you want to organize a summit for your industry or on some functional topic or whatever topic. What were some of the tools that you have used to pull this together in terms of how people will actually be presenting, the technology used to collect funds, just all the different technology tools if someone wants to set up a summit on their own. And then number three, maybe we can get in a little bit more into the content of what people will see if they attend your summit, and what some of the topics will be, and maybe hear about a few more of the speakers.
Sure. Yes.
So let's jump into that first one.
Yeah.
Just tell us how the idea came about and how did you pull it all together?
I'll be honest, it felt quite uncharacteristic of me. I'm kind of a planner, and we decided, so my team and I, Zach and I, 2 of us, we decided to move. So I've been reading a book on luck, and in this book, she kind of breaks down what are the scientific aspects of luck. And the story that she tells is of being trying to catch a train. She's on the upper platform. The train's arriving. It's leaving in 1 minute. She tries to go down, but the escalator is going the wrong way, and she has to go all the way around to the other side in order to get down to the other stairs. And at first she thinks, oh, forget it. There's no way I'll get the next train. But then she thought, you know what? I'm lucky. And so she moved and she ran across and got down and she got on her train. And like the kind of the message is, if you don't think you're lucky, it becomes a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Because there are opportunities that you don't move on, or you don't move on quickly enough. Whereas if you're lucky, you think, oh, well, this will work. And so kind of with that thought in mind, Zach and I were in our office, little kind of block and a half from my house, leaning back and thinking, okay, what are we going to do? All of my speaking schedule is like, everything's getting canceled and postponed. I was supposed to go to Malaysia. I was supposed to go to London. I had all these speaking engagements lined up, all not happening. And we're like, okay, well, what are we going to do at this time? And I thought of that story and I thought, okay, what's the train? And what had occurred to us is that other speakers also are in a similar situation, that their calendars are suddenly empty. There are people in need of understanding like what to do about the chaos, and really our brand promises step into the future, execute with clarity from the future. And those two things came together as saying, hey, let's just reach out to some of our speakers that we know and say, hey, would you be willing to do this summit? And so we started reaching out. We reached out first to Rita McGrath, who I mentioned earlier. And because I have a good relationship with her, she's been very supportive. She said, sure. Now, once we had her, then we could reach out to others that we were less close to, Whitney Johnson, Liz Weissman. These are all people who've on the Thinkers 50 list. And they started saying yes. And it sort of just snowballed from there. So I would say that was the moment, right, where we thought, okay, the train's leaving. Are we going to try to catch that train? Or are we going to sit here and bemoan the fact that we are going to miss the train?
Yeah. Brilliant idea to start with someone that you know who can be an anchor kind of to the event, and then be credibility building when you reach out to others. Let's just pause for a minute. I didn't really do an intro. We've known each other for years, and you have always amazed me with your productivity and how much awesome content you've been creating. You have 4 books now? Tell us a little bit about your bio, your
5.
books.
One of them's a rewrite of another one, but technically 5 books.
And just tell us a little bit about your normal practice. You mentioned you're doing speaking gigs, so tell us about what you guys do at Outthinker.
Yeah, so I was on the path of building a consulting firm, and I'm a former McKinsey, and I wrote a book, and I left to the firm and started kind of doing consulting based on my book, and I wrote a book on strategy, and I got my doctorate on this kind of theory of how people think strategically, or where strategic ideas come from. And I wrote another book on innovation, and another book on strategy again, and now a new book on innovation. And so that's my area, kind of strategy and innovation. And we pivoted the model last year away from consulting towards speaking, because the economics are very attractive, and I really love doing it. You kind of get paid for 1 hour speech. If you're well known, you get paid what you would get paid in 4 days of consulting, and it's 1 hour, right? And if you've got the marketing right, it's a pretty quick sales cycle, and I just love it, doing it. That turned out to be a little bit of a Achilles heel, because while consulting maybe is certainly depressed due to the COVID crisis, speaking is completely, not happening. So that's what I do. We primarily do speak. We primarily kind of run my speaking business, and we have a peer group of chief strategy officers, that we call the Outthinker Strategy Network. That's kind of a paid membership group. That has proven to be really important to us strategically, maybe less so financially. But having a peer group of kind of a niche function that is underserved, and serving them has been kind of an important foundation for us.
Great. And I know in addition to your speaking to larger groups, at least as of last year, you were also doing kind of seminars on the Outthinker process to companies, to strategy groups. Is that still part of your business?
It is, yes, it is. So yeah, my speeches are kind of like 1-hour versions of a 1-day workshop that we've kind of packaged, and we have as a very systematic workshop with a workbook and a book and an agenda that's been vetted and tested. And we have other people now that can deliver that as well.
Okay, cool. So that gives people a little
back. It's not a big part of our business, to be honest with you.
Okay, cool.
It's become not a huge part.
So that gives people a little background that you built this speaking business, and so you have relationships with other speakers and so forth. Let's get back to the story of how you pulled this together. So you came up with the idea, then you reached out to Rita McGrath, got her on board, began reaching out to other speakers, and then tell us about some of the people. So people say yes. Now tell us about some of the technology and how you actually, if someone wants to do this themselves, create a summit for their niche, their people that they know. What are some of the tools and practical tips that you have for setting something like this up?
Yeah. Well, the first thing to think about is what platform you're going to use to deliver it. And there are a whole number of, there's GoToWebinar, and there are newer platforms and the platforms that are built for virtual summits. However, we use Zoom. Zoom is easy for people to log on to. We rarely have any kind of like firewall problems. People know how to use it, don't have to download an app, and they can support up to 10,000 users, participants. So, most summits, certainly ours, will fit within that, although we would love to try to break that. So that's one component. The other component is taking payment. And what was interesting is that the way that people want to pay, depending on geography, is different. So in the United States, Stripe is very easy to use. However, in Europe, they prefer PayPal. So you want to be able to, take payment from different forms just to make it easy for people. So you got to, figure that out. The next thing is, how are you going to enable affiliates? So an important part of the marketing plan for us is that we partner with these nonprofits, mostly business school alumni clubs, that are also hurting and trying to help members who are hurting. We basically have an affiliate program with them where either they get a discount and or they get an affiliate share, like a percentage of tickets sold that go to the nonprofit. And so you need to be able to enable that. The Eventbrite does allow that. It's a great platform to consider, so you don't have to put so many pieces in place. So I think those are like the three primary systems, if you will. I guess another thing that really helped, and we got this from an article that we found on how to organize a virtual summit, which I'll give you the link of, and you can share, is just using Doodle to schedule your speakers, because going back and forth between these speakers and asking them, can you do Tuesday at 3? Oh, but someone else can do Tuesday at 3, and having to go back and forth, that can turn into a nightmare. We sent out a Doodle, and people could just, in 30 seconds, just pick, and you see the calendar fill up. What's also neat about that was you can set up the Doodle so that when someone logs on to choose their spot, they see the names of the other speakers who have already logged on. And I think it sort of enhances their excitement about being part of this. They feel like they're not just one speaker, they're part of a group of speakers, and these are speakers that they want to be associated with. So I'd say those are the four technology choices that we made that maybe they're better choices, but those are working for us.
And you also pulled together pretty quickly a dedicated web page for this. Is this your normal website tool? Do you guys use WordPress or something else?
We usually use, we don't know how to use WordPress well. So we're building this off of a site that we built on Squarespace. It's a site that we can, so we have two websites, right? We have the Outthinker.com website, which is WordPress. Every time we want to make a change to that, we need to ask our web designer person to do it. And then we have another website that we launched a year ago on Squarespace that is outthinkerroundtables.com. That's for our membership group, and that we can easily manipulate, right? So we're building it off of that website. That said, there is I'll include a link to what we used in order to create this particular page, because we partnered with a group called Innovators, INNOV numeral 8RS. They run conferences on innovation, and they've run virtual conferences before. They run their own branded conferences. But I reached out to the CEO, who I knew, and I said, hey, would you consider helping us with this conference? And, we'll kind of just pay for your time. And because it's for a good cause, he was willing to do that and do it at a bit of a discount. So he also knows how to set up these kind of pages. So I'll find out which tool he used to create the page and then transport it into Squarespace.
All right, cool.
Long answer. I'm sorry.
No, it was a great detailed answer. So using Zoom to actually deliver the event. And so how does it work? So people sign up on Eventbrite, and then they can, when they're in Eventbrite, they can either pay using PayPal or Stripe. And then somehow, I've used Eventbrite too. It's what we use for Umbrex events. And so that allows you to have different kind of discount codes that would either, give people a discount, or if it's an affiliate, give them a slight discount, and then you know how much to pay, or how much to revenue share with that club that sent it out to their members. And then once people sign up with the Eventbrite, how do they then get access to the Zoom? Is there like a login, or how does that part work?
Yeah, so they get a ticket code, and that's a unique ticket code to them, and they can use that to register. So they're going to get an email closer to the date and say, hey, we're only a few days out. Make sure you register and see the calendar. We haven't created that yet because we don't have the calendar yet defined. Sorry, I want to make a correction. We started using Eventbrite, but instead we decided to use something called Tailor, TICKETTAILOR. There are a lot of alternatives to Eventbrite. Eventbrite is the most well-known. Eventbrite, it's a little bit more costly in terms of the percentage that they keep, and they give you your money after 3 days after the event. And so Ticket Tailor's kind of less costly. So we ended up using this different platform, Ticket Tailor. But essentially, it works the same way that Eventbrite does. That you get a ticket code, and then a few days before the event, you'll get an email saying register, and then you'll get you'll be able to access the Zoom. You'll get the Zoom information. Now, what we're thinking of doing is just having one Zoom room open for 10 hours each day. Sorry, as we're recording this, as most people are working from home, and there was some background noise.
Oh no, it's cool. That's podcast verite. So that's
okay. All right.
That's part of the whole experience.
So loud.
It's part of the experience.
So what we're going to do is just have one Zoom room open, because we kind of want to make it feel like a real event, as opposed to different webinars that you can sign up for. So we'd like to be that you could just be there and sit there the whole time. We'll go 50 minutes and then a 10-minute changeover, and then 50 minutes, another 10-minute changeover, and just do that 10 hours day one and 10 hours day two. So they just need one Zoom registration in order to do that.
Oh, that makes it easier. And let's talk now. Okay, so they get a unique registration code, which is cool. I haven't seen Eventbrite. I suppose Eventbrite can do that. I haven't tried that aspect before. So you get a unique code as an email, and then you would use that to go register at Zoom, I guess. So people would then go to Zoom and register.
Yeah, two things. One is, as I said, we decided not to use Eventbrite. We decided to use Tailor instead of Eventbrite.
Right.
And the second thing is there are two different versions of Zoom. There's Zoom meetings and there's Zoom webinars.
Yeah, you got to pay an extra $40 a month.
So we have to use the Zoom webinar version.
Yeah.
The Zoom webinar version allows for registrations so that people can have unique registrations and you can control who has access to the event.
That's very cool.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And
we're also going to record all of them give people access to them afterwards. That's turned out to be a really important selling point if you're thinking of putting on an online summit. The idea that you're going to get to view the content on demand as opposed to live is a big selling point. In fact, we're talking to Fast Company about a partnership where they might promote the summit. And they've told us when they've done things like this, 80% of the revenue has come afterwards through the on-demand offering versus the live offering.
Oh, that's amazing. So they would.
Very interesting.
And then how are you going to just practically do that? Is it save each one as a 1 hour video and then put it on YouTube as a private link, or how would you practically give people access? Have you figured that out?
We're figuring it out as we go.
I love it. Okay.
But I think it's probably going to be Vimeo because we want to make sure that only people who are registered are allowed to access it, because the speakers don't want us to. They want to make the content available to participants, but they're not giving us content to just broadcast for free. If that makes sense.
No, it does. It does. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's, and then, so that allows people who says, oh, well, geez, I can't take 2 full days to watch it. They say, okay, I can still log in and see it on demand or see the speakers that I particularly wanted to watch when I want to. All right.
Now, I've read that best practice, which I don't know if we're going to have the resources and time to do it, is to give them the video, but then also give them a summary, like have someone listen to it and write up some kind of notes, and also other documents like the handouts or the workbook or something like that. You can put all those things together. That makes it much more valuable.
Yeah. I mean, at a minimum,
I don't know if I have the time to do that, though.
At a minimum, you get a transcript of each one done.
Yeah.
With say rev.com or some other transcript source, and maybe someone to clean that
What is that? What do you use for
I use rev.com, rev.com, and all my podcast episodes, there's a transcript available for download for people that aren't into listening to me. And it's there's 2 versions of Rev. You can get the artificial intelligence version, which is super cheap. It's like 5-6 cents a minute, something really low. I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 cents a minute, but very, very cheap. And it's also fast. For something like this, I would recommend. I go with the human transcript, which is $1 per minute, and then a human actually does it. So it's pretty good. If you do the AI version, you get it back in maybe 15 minutes or 20 minutes if it's an hour long. If you use the human, it's depending on how long your recording is. If it's an hour long, it might take them up to 24 hours. If it's shorter, you usually get it in less time, and it's very good quality. If you have speaker names or unusual terms that you want to make sure get spelled correctly, then you can put in those terms that or those names. But otherwise, they do a pretty good job. And so I recommend rev.com. I'm sure there's other ones out there, but it's quick and easy. And then they just farm it out to someone.
Great.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, and then how are you thinking of, in addition to watching the videos, will there be chances for listeners to use the chat feature and ask questions or connect with one another? Or what are you thinking beyond listening to the speakers? Any other features?
Yeah, we think that an important part of the value proposition that's unique is that you get to interact with the speakers, not just listen to them. Because you can kind of pick any of these speakers and find a YouTube video of them speaking at you. So we thought it was important to enable people to ask questions. So the way we're going to do that in 2 ways. We're using something that I think you're familiar with called Mentimeter.
Yeah.
Which is a really beautiful online polling tool. You typically use it standing in front of a room with a screen in front of you, but I've used it on your desktop at Zoom. You share your desktop and people can, enter. You can see live these things popping up. So our plan is to start off for the first 5 minutes asking people to share what is their number one question about this topic, and their answers will just pop up and slide up in tiles on the screen. And that'll inform what the speaker speaks about. Then we're going to go about 20 or 25 minutes with the speaker speaking. I've asked them to keep their comments shorter so that we have at least 10 minutes, preferably 15 minutes after that to have Q&A. Now for Q&A, it often takes a while for people to warm up. Now we already have a list of questions, but often those questions change after people hear the presentation because they understand what the thought leader's expertise or point of view is, and so they want to ask different questions. Now it takes a little time for people to warm up and ask questions, so what we're going to do is we've come up with 3 standard questions. One of them will certainly be something around COVID, like how do you see, if you're a leadership expert, how do you see leadership changing in the future because of the COVID crisis? For an economist, how do you feel the economy will look differently because of the COVID crisis, right? So we'll ask that question. And then one other question that's common across all the speakers, and I'll tell you why we're going to have one common question across all the speakers. And then we've also asked the speakers ahead of time, what are 2 or 3 questions you would like us to ask you, so that, we can immediately jump to questions, and then people will type in questions into the chat function of Zoom. And we're going to have a facilitator for each person. The speakers really would like a facilitator because, for them to be all on their own, trying to set up and present and talk and also read the questions and mute people and unmute people, it's too much.
Right.
So we want a co-pilot, Yep. So that person will read the questions, select them, and read selected questions to the thought leader.
No, that's great. Having a facilitator to curate makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
So that sounds amazing. And so just maybe as we getting close to the end here, tell us, you mentioned 2 or 3 in the beginning. You mentioned Paul Krugman, Rita McGrath. Who are some of the other folks that I'm sure you're excited about all of them. Who are some of the other folks that are going to be speaking?
I won't give you the whole list, but I don't know how not to give you the whole list. But Ming Zhang, he's the chief strategy officer. He was the chief strategy officer of Alibaba, kind of, there as the company grew from 0 to 70 billion or whatever it was. Amy Webb, she's a futurist, NYU professor. She's the author of some great books on artificial intelligence and how it might affect humanity. Whitney Johnson, she is an author of Disrupt Yourself, and she has this podcast that I highly recommend called Disrupt Yourself, and she interviews some amazing thinkers on innovation. Safi Bakal, he's based in New York. He, ex-McKinsey guy, he wrote a book called Loon Shots, which was rated as the #1 book of the year by the Financial Times last year. There's a couple more. Liz Weissman, she's the author of a book called Multipliers, also a book called Rookie Smarts, but her Multipliers book is highly influential, and she was rated by Thinkers 50 as the #1 thought leader in leadership. Anyway, I could go on, but those are some of the speakers that we're going to have.
That sounds amazing. Kaihan, for listeners of this show, do you have a discount code available for them?
Yes, we do. So for anyone listening to the show, if you use Unleashed 30, that will give you a 30% discount on the ticket. So UNLEASHED, #3, #0.
That is awesome. Thank you for that, Kaihan. So Unleashed 30. And again, Kaihan mentioned he's giving several different options for affiliates. So in this case, this one's not a revenue share. It's a complete discount to you.
Right.
I hope you use it. It sounds like an amazing event. I plan to sign up, and it sounds very cool to hear all these thinkers on what is going to happen next and how they would suggest reacting to COVID. So, Kaihan, what you're doing, I think, is entrepreneurial, and not surprised that you would think of something like this, but it's a great example of how, while we're all stuck at home, we can still go out there and create value And
Right.
congratulations to you for pulling this together.
No, thank you, and thank you for having me on and spreading the word. And remember, all the ticket sales, whatever you do, pay for the ticket after the discount. That goes to nonprofits. So doing self good and doing the world good.
So it all goes to nonprofits that are helping victims of the pandemic and other organizations fighting against it. Kaihan,
Right.
Thank you so much for being on the show.